Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Korn, Kevin Prairie, and Tom Hayes.
A bunch of teams similar to where we are in the country. Right. But we play in a really good conference, and we played some big games. We played some tough teams. We played some tough ball games throughout the course of the year. So I think we're pretty good.
Obviously, it's going to have implications and big implications, but season doesn't end no matter what happens. If we play well at Vandy or if they play well, the season doesn't end on Saturday in Nashville. What if the team that loses the series goes on and wins the SEC tournament? Are they, a lot of baseball to be played.
Indeed, but it is a big series for USC and Vanderbilt as they prepare to play tomorrow night in Nashville. That was Chad Holbrook. We'll chat with him from Tennessee coming up at the bottom of the hour. Jack Leggett as well for Clemson. Every game is crucial for them. Do we think the Tigers are in regardless of what happens against Boston College, or do they need to win 2 of 3, perhaps even sweep, and then go to the ACC tournament and win a couple of games to secure a spot in the NCAA tournament? We'll hear from Jack Leggett tonight as well. Welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, here on a Wednesday night. Phil Kornblut, Kevin McCrary, the empty chair down there. That's the professor, Tom Hayes, who is not with us tonight, taking the night off. We appreciate you joining us here on the program. I'd love to hear from you. 800-956-7266 is how you can dial us up. You can email us as well. Talkback@sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter, it's @sportstalksc. K-Mac, last night watching the Clippers and the Thunder, that's why we love NBA playoffs. That was one great basketball game.
It's been a great series because Sunday, I was actually in here Sunday evening, and Pro and I were catching that game at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and it looked like it was going to be a runaway in favor of Oklahoma City. They were up big, and then the Clippers roared back and won that one. And then last night, it looked like the Clippers were going to win, 13-point lead with 4 minutes to play. Now, there was a lot of bad plays down the stretch of that. There's been some really shaky play by these two teams down the stretch of these games. That happened in Sunday's Game 4 as well, but the call was blown. Doc Rivers had every reason that fine is going to be worth it for him. You have to do that if you're Doc Rivers, and that was a blown call. The Clippers should have won in that regard, but let's give Oklahoma City some credit, too, for getting back in the game, even making it a factor, and that was a great game.
What an unbelievable shot Durant hit. I mean, that was just not many people. Durant, LeBron, how many people can hit that shot with somebody hanging on you like that? It just, his size and his talent was just, he overmatched the guy who was defending him, and just a great game. And
that's what you love about it, too, the playoffs, too. I mean, absolutely. I like, LeBron dropped 49, and before the game, Paul Pierce was trying to get into his head, saying, I want to guard him, trying to pull that whole thing, because he shut him down when he was, when they were with the Celtics, but he went out there and said, okay, guard me. He dropped 49 on him.
Unbelievable. All right, so we got all that to talk about. Of course, Clemson gets a big commitment from Sterling Johnson. That happened like 30 seconds after we signed off last night. Of course. We'll talk about that and maybe just how stupid Tennessee is. Back in a moment. Clemson added a big commitment last night in Sterling Johnson. We told you what was going on with him through the day yesterday. Actually wanted to go to Tennessee, and they didn't take his commitment yesterday. They wanted to see him in camp because a couple of their defensive ends had blown up into tackles. It left them with one spot at defensive tackles. They wanted to see him in camp, and that kind of put him out and put him off and his mother off. And so he turned around and committed to Clemson last night and is, I believe, absolutely firm with that commitment after speaking with him last night. And so you just have to wonder, I mean, you know, I don't like to second-guess personnel decisions because coaching staffs, they know what they need. And they know what they have to fill within their respective positions. But that being said, this guy has big time written all over him. I mean, all over him. And why would you turn this guy away if he wanted to come? And this is a good break for Clemson. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good in a lot of things, including recruiting. And this is one that just sort of fell into Clemson's lap, and they'll make the most of it. And I'm sure we're going to see this guy, barring injury or something else. I have a feeling we'll see this guy making a lot of big plays for Clemson's defense in the years to come.
Yeah. Obviously I haven't followed this nearly as closely as you have. And, on the surface you'd say, well, what did Tennessee do wrong? I always defer to specific coaching staffs. We get these kind of questions all the time. Why didn't Clemson offer this guy? Or why did USC offer that quarterback out of Northwestern? And you always say, my answer is always the coaching staff, they know the kind of player that they want. It doesn't mean that guy wasn't good enough to play at a school like South Carolina or Tennessee or wherever. It just means that maybe the coaches said, we've got some other guys that we have in here now that we want. It's not the best fit for us. It's not the best fit for you right now. And so he goes somewhere else. That's part of the game. He went to the place where it's probably a better fit for him. Tennessee might end up regretting it. They might not. They might have some redshirt guy that didn't play last year that's going to be a stud for them in the next couple of seasons that they feel good about. So I don't know. That's why it's hard for me to say it was stupid on their part.
It leaves me scratching my head, just like when Georgia passed on Kelsey Griffin a couple of years ago because he didn't fit their 3-4 defensive scheme. Well, I mean, this guy looks like in time he could play in any defensive scheme. And I just don't understand, especially an in-state guy who wanted to go to Georgia first. That was a case for South Carolina caught the break. He wanted to go to Georgia, actually committed to Georgia. They didn't take his commitment, figured their position was at the time he didn't fit in with their scheme. Hard to understand that. But I do understand, and I give coaches this. They look at things a lot differently than any of us do when they break down a player and his skill set and things that he does well and he doesn't do well. And listen, if they see the least little thing they don't like, they'll pass on a guy. It could be where he puts his hands. It could be where his hips.
Could be how he talks to his mom.
Could be anything. Yeah. So, but just on the outside looking at it, it looks like a pretty bad move for Tennessee and a great break for Clemson. Okay, we'll have a full recap in recruiting coming up for you a little bit later on. South Carolina is in great position with wide receiver Jalen Christian out of Maryland. We'll tell you about that in recruiting coming up in just a little bit. 800-956-7266. Couple of quick notes, and then we'll get to some phone calls tonight and also check out some more email that has come in from you. The APR reports, the official ones came out today, and Clemson and USC both feeling good about what they accomplished. Clemson's release says 18 athletic programs exceeded the NCAA baseline APR thresholds for the 2012-13 academic year. This is data released today by the NCAA. Football program was recognized last week for its multi-year total ranking among the top 10% of all FBS programs, and is one of only 5 FBS programs ranked in the top 10% each of the last 4 years. During the 2012-13 academic year, 6 programs posted perfect 1,000 single-year scores, including men's and women's cross-country, diving, women's soccer, women's tennis, and volleyball. Now, USC's release, all 19 of their countable intercollegiate sports posted a multi-year score of 950 or better for the 3rd consecutive year. And highlighting South Carolina's data, school record 10 teams, women's basketball, men's and women's golf, men's and women's soccer, men's and women's swimming and diving, men's and women's tennis and volleyball, a perfect single-year score of 1,000 for 2012 and 13. Football, multi-year score 980, single-year score of 994, recognized last week for being in the top 10% of Division I FBS schools. So both can brag about what they're doing in the classrooms. KJ McDaniels, former Clemson star, he's up in Chicago today. The NBA Draft Combine began, and it runs through Friday, and he'll be there working out. And we're going to hear some comments from KJ coming up on the program tonight. And the Braves are in action as we speak. They won last night 5-0. Mike Minor pitched very well. Things are not going well for the Braves right now. They trail bottom of the seventh at San Francisco. It's an 8-4 game. This was a 4-4 game, and San Francisco has scored 4 unanswered runs. Hunter Pence homered for the Giants just a little while ago, and they have gone up on the Braves now 8-4 as they look to close out the series with a win this afternoon.
I do not like the San Francisco Giants.
Why? I love the Giants.
Not a fan of their work.
Well, because you're a Dodgers fan.
Right.
Yeah. But it's a beautiful ballpark. I've had the pleasure of watching a game there. It's one of the best that you can ever go to watch baseball. 8-12-0 for the Giants, 4-7-1 for the Braves this afternoon. We'll get more on this from Mike Morgan a little bit later on in the program. Tell you about Braves pitching real quick today. They started with Tehran, who went 3 in the third innings, 7 hits, 5 runs, 4 earned. He walked 5. And Wood has come on. He's gone 2 2/3. He's given up 5 hits, 3 runs to this point. Each gave up a home run. All right, 800-956-7266 coming up. We'll hear from Jack Leggett. We'll hear from Chad Holbrook from USC, getting ready for these big baseball series for the two teams. And let's hit the phones as we go to John in Greenville. Hey, John, how are you? Welcome into Sports Talk.
Thank you. How y'all doing tonight?
Hey, we're doing fine.
I just like to congratulate Dabo Swinney and his staff for the great commitment. And it seems to me that we're getting some of the players now that usually go to the Florida State, Alabama, Texas. Maybe our staff is, maybe doing such a good job now that maybe we're going to see some of those great players coming through our system we've been doing in the past years in the state.
Well, yeah, I think they're in the midst of that right now. I would say 5 guys drafted over the weekend, first rounder, top 5 pick, and Sammy Watkins. Recruiting has not been a problem at Clemson really since it started turning in the Tommy Bowden era, and Dabo Swinney took that momentum and took it to a whole nother level. And he's a great recruiter. You've got Jeff Scott, who's a great recruiter, Brent Venables. They have a lot of really good recruiters. Chad Morris can sit down and wrap the players and their parents. Probably now that Lane Kiffin's not around anymore, Dabo Swinney might be one of the best closers in college football in terms of landing some pretty big prospects.
You mean as far as head coaches are
concerned?
Head
coaches and recruiting. Nick Saban's really good too. Obviously, he has a different approach, but Dabo Swinney is a heck of a salesman at Clemson, and that's what you want from your head coach.
Yeah, that's real good pickup for them, it appears. Now, when you're talking about a high school kid, of course, I'm always careful about not trying to overhype, because we see a lot of kids flame out because they were so hyped coming out of high school, and they certainly didn't live up to their expectations. I mean, there's obviously cases where the hype is correct. I mean, Sammy Watkins was certainly as good as advertised coming out of high school. Lattimore, Clowney. I mean, you can cite many of them, but you can also, for every one that you can point to that lived up to the hype, you can probably point to 2 who failed to live up to the hype. So I want to be careful, but at least on paper, the Sterling Johnson kid, size is 6'5", 290, had 50-something tackles for loss last year, 8 sacks, 90 tackles overall. He looks like a player. Be right back. right, we're going to call for the old squeeze play here on Sports Talk. Going to squeeze in a few minutes with Clemson coach Jack Leggett, who's about to go out and be social. So we're going to have him on the program with us before he goes out to dinner and get ready for Boston College tomorrow night. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Phil. How you doing?
Hey, we're doing great. We'll keep our questions short and keep your answers short,
No
and you'll get through it.
No problem. Just go ahead.
Boston College.
Glad to be with you.
Hey, thank you. Boston College coming in tomorrow night, 3-game set to close out the regular season, and obviously huge series for your guys.
It's a big series for us. We've got to play well. We're, I think we're in a good position. We played, a very tough schedule. Our RPI is pretty good, strength of schedule, all those types of things. But, we have to play well at the end. I think we've been playing pretty good baseball as of late. We didn't do so good up at Notre Dame. Lost a very tough ball game and won a good ball game and didn't play so well on Sunday. But I like how this team has been playing the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I think we've got good focus, and I think we'll be ready to play this weekend for sure.
Tell you what, Gossett is perhaps as good as anybody in the country right now.
He's been really good for us. He's been consistent all season long. He's been aggressive, got a lot of confidence in what he's doing. I really like the way he's been pitching, and he's been giving us a big lift. And Cronover's been good for us too, and we just could use a little bit more run support for him. But we've been behind those two guys. We've been playing very well.
All right, now for your third game, you haven't identified a starting pitcher yet. I know you switched things up at Notre Dame. What are you thinking about your third starter?
Probably come back with Jake Long. I think he's due for a good outing. He's usually battles for us. He's just got to be a little more consistent, throw strikes a little bit more often, work ahead in the count a little more often. So I think something good will happen for him. I think he's been in a little bit of a rough place the last few times out. But I think they'll do something good for us.
What's the update on Krieger? And of course, Baum's been playing so well for you at short. You continue with Krieger at DHing and leave Baum at short?
Well, right now, Tyler's arm is just not good enough to go out there and make all the throws that you have to at shortstop, and so we're hoping something that he doesn't have to have surgery after the season. We're still assessing that, but he works hard every single day. We haven't let him. I'd say, rear back and throw the thing because we don't want to go backwards. So we're just kind of keeping him in the DH spot. Garrett's done a pretty good job out in left field for us, Garrett Bolware.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of put a little tax on Oki, who's been catching him in the game for us. So, but I think it makes our lineup go. With Krieger in the lineup, it makes a big difference for us. So we've got to keep him there, and other guys have to fill in and suck it up. And we'll continue with that lineup right now for a little while. And we'll see where it takes us, but I think it's our only way to go.
Okay, we're going to let you run off to dinner, and we thank you for the visit. Good luck against Boston College, and then we'll get with you heading into the ACC tournament next week.
Sounds good, Phil. You guys headed for break already?
Heading to the break. Little 4 minutes.
You got to pay the bills, huh?
Got to pay the bills. You got K-Mac's salary just breaks us every year. So, all right, Coach, thank you very much, and we'll be back. More sports talk in this moment. Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, Wednesday night edition. Phil Kornblut, Kevin McCrary with you tonight. Professor Tom Hayes taking the night off. 800-956-7266. Phone number. Love to hear from you tonight if you want to join us, talk about anything that we have discussed. The baseball series coming up, Clemson, Boston College. Thanks again to Jack Leggett for joining us. As brief as it was, I think we covered many of the high points. We'll be talking to Chad Holbrook in the next half hour. We've pushed that back to the 7:10 segment because they're just getting into Nashville, getting to the hotel, and we'll chat with him a little bit after 7 o'clock as the Gamecocks prepare to take on an outstanding Vanderbilt team that, typical of Vanderbilt, K-Mac, loaded with pitching.
Mm-hmm.
And, South Carolina struggles to score anyway. So I think it's pretty simple to say that this 3-game series that will begin tomorrow night in Nashville will boil down to defense, who's going to not make the big blunder in the field to give up free runs, and who's going to get the better pitching. I think both are going to pitch well. Based on what we've seen, South Carolina's 3 starters are about as good as anybody's, but Vanderbilt's are exceptional, especially in their park. Which side is going to manufacture a run or two and be able to, pull out a 2-1, 3-2 kind of victory? That's what I'm looking for.
That's a tough trip too. You got to ride the bus for 7+ hours and go up there and play a really good Vanderbilt team that's going to throw those great pitchers at you. And the Gamecocks offense has shown a little bit of life, and if Max Schrock can get back in the lineup, he definitely provides a spark. Holbrook said even when he's not getting hits, he provides a spark for the team. They need to win a couple of games up there, but I also think you need to take into account something that Holbrook said on Sunday, that this series isn't the end-all, be-all. There is still the SEC tournament. The Gamecocks are at 40 wins. I think they're in good shape to host a regional. If they were to have a big series at Vanderbilt, win 2 of 3, and then go deep in the SEC tournament with their high RPI, maybe they could slide into that top 8 and get a host spot. I know that the committee would never take such things into account as Carolina Stadium would be packed for all those games, and it would look great on TV, and it would probably be a big revenue builder. I'm sure that wouldn't factor in the history. And that's one of the things the Gamecocks, quite frankly, they've earned that. That's one of the advantages of being a power program, a team that's won a couple of national championships, a team that has a great ballpark that ESPN likes coming to because it's an easy place to set up. The crowds are great. It looks good on TV. It's like the Yankees and the Celtics and the Lakers, they get a lot of the breaks, but they've earned those breaks. Duke gets the calls at home. Well, they've earned those calls, and that's kind of where the Gamecocks are in baseball.
The pitching matchup for Thursday night is Jordan Montgomery, 7-4, 3.21 against Tyler Beatty. He's the junior right-hander. His record's not all that great, 7-6, 3.43 ERA, but he is a hard thrower, 82 strikeouts in 76 innings. In fact, their entire 3-man rotation, they all throw hard. Wynkoop will start on Friday, 7-3, 2.16 against Carson Fulmer, who's a right-hander, 4-1, 0.96 ERA. He's got 62 strikeouts in 55 innings. And then Will Crow, 6-3, 2.97, will go up against right-hander Tyler Ferguson, 7-3, 2.66. Again, hard thrower, 55 strikeouts in 67 innings. Doesn't have quite the strikeout ratio that his teammates do. Last year, South Carolina, in fact, the Gamecocks have lost 1, 2, 3. They've lost 4 in a row to Vandy. Now, they've all been pretty close. Vandy beat the Gamecocks in Hoover.
Yeah, that was
in 2012.
Didn't they beat them last year too?
Well, I'm getting to that.
Yeah, okay.
They beat them in Hoover last year, 3-2. I'm sorry, in 2012, 3-2. Then in Columbia last year, they only played 2 games. They must have had a rain out.
Mm-hmm.
They lost a game, didn't they? So they lost. They beat them 3-2 and 5-2 in Columbia, and then in Hoover, in 10 innings, Vandy won 4-3.
That's the game Max Schrock got pancaked, not Joey pancaked, but pancaked, the bad kind.
So Vandy's had USC's number here of late. still the Gamecocks match up extremely well. The Gamecocks team ERA going into this series is 1.99.
It's incredible.
I mean, that really is 1.99. Vandy's is 2.5. So, they're not Swiss cheese. And the batting averages are pretty comparable, 283 for USC, 280 for Vanderbilt. Vandy, Gamecocks have hit 29 home runs to Vandy's 20. That park allows for a lot of doubles. Vandy's has 116 doubles on the season because it's kind of a big outfield, and so it allows for a lot of gap hitting and balls rolling to the wall, that sort of thing. So they do have 116 doubles. They have 11 triples. Gamecocks have only 4 triples. So the outfielders defensively are going to have to knock balls down and not let the balls get by them into the fence and give up extra bases against that Vanderbilt fence, which is obviously kind of built around that ballpark. So it should be very outstanding series, and it starts tomorrow night on ESPNU at 7:30. Then on Friday night at 7:30, and then Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock Eastern time. And the Gamecocks, this is probably not going to happen. If they sweep Vanderbilt, then, and if Florida is swept at Tennessee, that's not going to happen. But let's just play hypothetical. And then if Ole Miss only wins 2 games against Texas A&M, then the Gamecocks can tie for the best record overall in the league. Now, Florida's got the tiebreaker against them. There's no way the Gamecocks can win the East because Florida beat them head-to-head.
No, well, it doesn't matter. If you're tied, you'll be co-champs. Now, Florida would be the number 1 seed in Hoover.
Yeah.
But remember a few years ago, the last time the Gamecocks won the SEC championship, they finished tied with Florida. They had beat the Gators head-to-head, but they were still both recognized as SEC champions.
But as far as the top seed goes,
the top seed in the tournament goes to the team that won head-to-head. That's where the tiebreaker comes into play. But if you're collecting trophies and championships, you would get a championship. Yeah. But that's
probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
All right, back to the phones we go, and we jump to Tim in Rock Hill. Next up on Sports Talk. Good evening, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you fellas?
Man, we're doing great. Good to have you with us.
Listening to Kenny Mack talk about the 7-hour bus trip, I would have thought that maybe these big-time powerhouse programs and baseball programs would fly to some of these games. Is that the way it is, though? You don't none of them really. Is bus always going to be the mode of transportation they're going to be taking?
We'll ask Chad about that. You're the second person who's asked us that the last couple of nights. And, they have some parameters that they have to stay within from a budgeting standpoint. Now, like when South Carolina goes to Missouri, when they go to Arkansas, they fly.
A&M.
Yeah, Texas A&M. They haven't been there yet for baseball. I think they bust to LSU.
Well, they did in the past. And that was a battle Ray Tanner when he was the skip. He would fight with Eric Hyman a lot about trying to get better transportation, chartered flights. That's the thing about baseball teams, unlike basketball and football. You've got a bigger roster. You've got all, the equipment. It's very expensive.
Now, I will say this. I saw a tweet picture from inside the Gamecock bus. One of the players tweeted out a picture. I mean, this isn't, your typical school bus that they're riding in. This is a luxury bus with big television screens throughout and big comfortable
Wi-Fi.
seats. Yeah, so, but I understand what you're saying. It is a bus ride, and a bus ride is a bus ride, regardless of the comforts around you.
See the beauty of the Great Smoky Mountains.
Yeah. We'll ask Chad about that, though. What's the determining factor in terms of distance, busing versus flying? Like Lexington, Kentucky is not much shorter than it is to Nashville. It's maybe a half hour, maybe an hour difference, but they bus to Lexington. And but teams have to bus to South Carolina, and the Texas A&M would certainly fly in for baseball, and Arkansas
charters everywhere because there's nothing close to Arkansas.
Well, Missouri,
nothing close to Missouri.
They wouldn't have to charter there. And maybe Texas A&M they might would bus down there. We'll ask Chad how that is handled. Thanks for your phone call. We appreciate it. We got a Braves report coming up, assuming that Mike Morgan will join us. We can crime away from television. As I figured, Mike Morgan too busy with his Braves afternoon watch party to join us tonight for our Braves report. So we'll tell you the Braves are still in action at San Francisco, and they continue to trail. It's 8-4 Giants in the bottom of the eighth. 13-0 for the Giants, 4-7-1 for the Bravos. And as far as who's done what today for the Braves, Tyler Pasternicki, he's had a couple of hits today. And let's see, Johnson's had a couple of hits as well for the Braves. So that's 4 of their hits. And pitching-wise, as I mentioned before, not a good day for the starter, Tehran. 3 1/3 innings, 7 hits, 5 runs, 4 earned. He also walked 5. So looks like the Braves, barring a rally, will go down to defeat, and they will lose this series at San Francisco. They did manage to win last night behind Mike Minor, who was very good in a 5-0 victory. How many hits did he give up? Do you remember?
I think he gave up 4 hits, 3 or 4 hits, and was very sharp. And the Braves played well. And unfortunately, they came out and looked like they were going to pick up where they left off. They scored 2 runs in the top of the first inning, but Tehran did not bring his good stuff with him to San Francisco.
Well, the walks, you could see he didn't have it today with the walks. Elsewhere today, Detroit beats Baltimore 7-5. Angels shut out Philadelphia 3-0. Kansas City beats Colorado 3-2. White Sox over Oakland 4-2. Washington beats Arizona 5-1. Cubs and St. Louis, they have been postponed. There you go with the update on Major League Baseball this afternoon. Mike will be back with us, I'm sure, tomorrow night. The 7-11-21 Instinct game has lucky numbers written all over it. With this $1 Instinct game, you could win up to $1,000 from the South Carolina Education Lottery. 800-956-7266. Coming up next hour, we'll hear from Chad Holbrook, and also we'll give you the recruiting report for tonight. And good buddy Chip Weil from Darlington Raceway will join us a night after he normally does. Missed him last night because he was tied up. He'll join us tonight. Talk a little NASCAR, a little bit about Darlington, and terrific race this past weekend, Saturday night at Kansas, though the lights went out on the back stretch for a little bit of the race. But saw some interesting things. Jeff Gordon winning, and he's just having a terrific year, been very consistent. Now he has that victory to go along with all his other good finishes this season. Danica Patrick had her best finish ever in a NASCAR Sprint Cup race. Actually showed that she could race somewhere other than restrictor plate tracks. Could actually handle a car and on a track that requires more from the driver than just mashing the gas pedal. She was able to hang in there all race long. So
world-class driver.
Well, I think she might show that before it's all said and done, K-Mac, so just watch yourself.
Hey,
okay, quit picking on the women. Here I am, I'm defending women and their right to drive cars.
It has nothing to do with
at speed.
Her being female. It's just, I'm judging her like I would a male.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if actually, though, if it was a male, she was judged on the same level as her male counterparts, she wouldn't have a ride right now.
That's not true. There are a lot of male drivers who are worse than she is that still
not
have
consistently. They don't have the GoDaddy.com sponsorship. They don't bring in the money, so they kick them to the curb.
Somebody just hit a 2-run homer for the Giants. It's now 10-4. So it's gone from bad to worse for Atlanta out in San Francisco. We were looking at the ACC tournament and Clemson's situation. The Tigers really can't mess around with Boston College because right now Clemson's 13-13 in league play. So that would put them in third place in the Atlantic Division, but more importantly, in terms of the overall standings and looking ahead to the seedings for the tournament, the Tigers would be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They would be in 7th place overall right now. And they've got 13 league wins. Wake Forest has 13 league wins. Georgia Tech has 14, but they've got 16 losses. So there are a couple of teams hanging in there right behind them. And we bring this up because the ACC still has pool play format for its baseball tournament, but the numbers 7, 8, 9, and 10 seeds, and Clemson, I said right now, is what, 7th?
Mm-hmm.
So they're sitting right there on that number 7 seed. That means you got to play on Tuesday to get into the main draw for the pool. And that number 7 seed plays at 11 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. So Tigers need to win some games to get beyond that number 7 seed and into the main draw and not have to worry about burning up pitching on that first day. Maryland's got 15 league wins. Where did they come from? Maybe they could catch them, and Duke's got 15 league wins. Got their work ahead of them.
All right, stand up.
Nice touch there with the music stick, man. Who is this?
Common Sense.
Oh, Common. Is this also Common?
Yes.
The guy known as Common?
Well, Common now, yes. Common Sense back in the day. I'm surprised you knew that.
Well, because he's an actor in my favorite show, Hell on Wheels, which hopefully is coming back this summer on, what is it, on AMC, I believe. So, yeah, I knew that, Common. Never heard him sing before, though. He's a good singer, huh?
That was his previous career, yes.
You don't remember all the outrage when he spoke? He read poetry to kids at the White House, and he got called and he's the farthest thing from a gangster rapper out there, but that's what he was called.
I did not know that.
That's some outlets.
Very good actor. Very good actor in this show. Have you seen this? I've talked about this show before.
I have not seen the show, but I'm familiar with some of his work.
Yeah, very good. All right, coming up on the top of the hour, and we'll be hearing from Chad Holbrook in the next hour. We'll get the latest from the Gamecocks and find out how they are stacking up health-wise, with the guys with the bad backs, a long bus ride. Not good for the back. So, in particular, Max Schrock, we'll see how he's feeling from the coach when we talk to him in the next hour. You want more out of your education? Well, Palmetto College offers the quality of a 4-year education online. To find out more, visit palmettocollege.sc.edu. With Palmetto College, your future has no limits. All right, what else do I want to mention to you here? Oh, how about this story? It came out yesterday talking about the SEC and beer. This writer points out West Virginia, Minnesota, Texas will probably do it this fall. No team in the SEC yet sells beer at college football games. League policy prohibits in-stadium alcohol sales. LSU Athletics Director Joe Oliva told the Baton Rouge Press Club Monday, however, the SEC might revisit that policy in the coming years. He said, quote, I think there may come a day that we may sell beer at college events at some point. I don't know if it will be 5 years from now or 10 at some point. I think it's going to happen. He cited West Virginia's success with their sales and improving the fan experience as a reason the SEC would have to study and look at it in the future.
Well, they're fighting the new wave of people that go to stadiums, park their cars, set up their direct TV and their TVs, and either go in for the first quarter or leave at halftime and go back and watch it. And that's where they have their coolers. That's where they have their TVs. A bathroom's more accessible. They're trying to improve the game day experience for fans because it's a huge trend now, especially younger fans that aren't staying. They don't have they can't get on Instagram and Snapchat.
Isn't that improvement to have a bunch of drunk slobs? Well, you got a bunch of drunk slobs already coming in from tailgating, but you're just going to add to that, aid them in getting drunk.
Well, I mean, it works in the NFL, okay. I mean, you stop selling at the third quarter, but they want to. If they're in the stands spending money, that's better than in the parking lot not.
All right, we'll talk more about that coming up. Top of the hour break.
All right, stand by.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Okay, back on Sports Talk Wednesday night. Coming up, Chad Holbrook. Talk with him about South Carolina and Vanderbilt upcoming. It's gone final in Frisco, and the Giants hammer the Braves this afternoon to win that series 10-4. So the Braves, their struggles are continuing right now. They were so hot to open the season, not so hot of late, and they lose today 10-4, 10-15-0 for San Fran, 4-7-1 for the Braves. Did you see the artist's rendering of the new stadium they're going to be building in 2017?
I did.
It just looks like any of the other.
I'm sure it's going to be very
ballparks.
nice.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's going to be hard to top the really nice one that they play in now called Turner Field, which if you talk to people that go and visit a lot of stadiums, Turner Field usually ranks pretty high on the list. People talk about Turner Field and Camden Yards, but now we just throw away stadiums after 15, 20 years.
Hard to beat Camden Yards. That's, sitting right in downtown Baltimore with the warehouse in the background,
Right.
and Utah Street and all the stuff right around it. That's phenomenal. The knock with Turner Field is the location.
Yeah, I mean, the National Stadium's very nice, too. You can see the monuments. You walk around the stadium, and it right there off the Potomac. But was it a perfect location for Turner Field? I don't know. I didn't think it was hard to get there.
I don't understand why they didn't build MARTA out to the stadium back when they were building MARTA out that way and Fulton County Stadium and all that. Why they stopped the MARTA track or didn't send it over that way? You can't take MARTA to Turner Field. You have to go downtown, hop on a bus if you're not going to drive your car. You have to go, underground Atlanta, hop on the bus, and that's just a pain, everybody. It really is. And or you just drive your car out there and pay $20 to park. But anyway, we'll see. I'm not sure. We'll see how all this plays out. I mean, where they're building this new place is it's demonic when it comes to traffic. If you know Atlanta traffic at all, it's where 75, 85, 285 kind of all come together, I believe. And if you've ever been on 285, from 3 to 7 in the afternoon on a typical day in Atlanta, Monday through Friday, you could be dead in the water out there for hours, especially if somebody crashes. So not so sure about how wise it is, and they're not going to have mass transportation going out there either.
No.
So
No.
Good luck with all that. All right, coming up, Chad Holbrook right around the corner here on Sports Talk. Get the latest from the Gamecock baseball coach as they prepare to take on the Vanderbilt Commodores, a team that's had the Gamecocks number here of late. Recruiting coming up as well. Also some comments from former Clemson basketball star K.J. McDaniels. The Heat and the Celtics underway down in Miami, and the Celtics are up 11-6. I have two teams I'm rooting for in the playoffs: the Brooklyn Celtics and the Doc Rivers Clippers. Those are my connections to the playoffs this year. And hopefully they will continue to win and advance. All right, Chad Holbrook coming up. We're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, and hopefully, shortly, we'll hook up with Chad Holbrook out in Nashville, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt getting ready for their big series that'll commence tomorrow night, 3-game showdown between two of the top 12 teams in the RPI, USC in the RPI this week. Number 12, RPI is hard to figure when you go 5-0 and you drop. So Gamecocks went from 11 to 12 despite having an unbeaten week. Vanderbilt, they went from 5 to 7 in the RPI this week. So they're hanging in there in that top 8, which is, you know, as Chad pointed out last night, it's not the end all. You can certainly win a super regional on the road, happens all the time. Or, as he pointed out, hey, if you don't finish in the top 8, it's still possible to host because the team opposite you, which would be in the top 8, might lose. And thus you would get that top 8 spot, and you would host that super regional. We all know USC's history in the NCAA tournament at home, and they've been very, very good. In fact, they've been practically unbeatable at home in the NCAA tournament here of late. So we are just told they're just getting off the bus. Okay, so we're going to back him up to the bottom of the hour. Yeah, it works for me. Have to keep watch on Mr. Wow calling in at about that time as well. We'll have to move him around too. That's okay. We'll make it work to get everybody in. So we'll get with Holbrook coming up here at the bottom of the hour. They must have had a long bus ride. They're just now getting off the bus. They left about, what, 10 o'clock this morning, 10 or 11?
Yeah, they probably had a pit stop for lunch somewhere along the way. They had to feed that rabbit that they bring. Probably had to stop and get a carrot somewhere near Gatlinburg for the rabbit.
Does the rabbit have the same magical force to it that the stick did?
The stick and then the fish, Reptar.
Yeah. Nothing has matched the stick. I mean, because, they won national championships with the stick. Did they win a national championship with Reptar? Or did he get them to the finals? How far did Reptar get?
I don't know if Reptar was
I thought Reptar won, if I remember correctly.
I don't remember if Reptar won that was the next year.
Where is Reptar now?
Reptar died shortly after the season.
It's too bad.
Ended. You know, fish don't have a real long life. The beta fish.
I had a goldfish that lived a long, prosperous life. If you take care of them and feed them properly and give them fresh
water. I wonder
water.
what the hotels think about the players bringing in a pet. One thing to bring in a fish, another thing to bring in a rabbit. They tend to leave a little more behind.
Well, I happen to have a pet rabbit.
No, you would. That does not surprise me that you have a pet rabbit.
I can testify to what it takes to keep a rabbit clean, and my little Binky does fine, thank you.
Wow,
he does.
You should have loaned Binky to the Gamecock baseball team instead of what's the name of the rabbit?
I don't know. Wiley Rabbit?
I don't remember the name of the rabbit.
We'll have to ask.
They do have a rabbit.
All right, so two things to ask Holbrook. A, why not fly versus bus? And B, what's the name of your rabbit? I'll have to be sure we ask that question.
It's Byron the Bunny.
Byron the Bunny.
Byron the Bunny. Okay.
He's got his own Twitter feed.
Byron does?
Yeah.
How many please tell me he doesn't have more followers than we do.
By now, I haven't checked in a while.
That would be embarrassing. Let's check out some of the email that we have in while we have a couple of minutes here. Let's see. This is from our good buddy Yarky. Yarky asks good questions. I wish the rest of you could ask questions like Yarky does. He gets right to the point. He has specific items on his mind he wants answered, typically about Clemson. Yarky's a huge Clemson fan. How many defensive linemen will Clemson take in 2015? Well, I would think that they've got 2, Cervenka and Johnson. They're losing 3 senior defensive linemen, so you got to replenish that. So I think they would take at least 3, maybe 4, depending on who's out there and who they can get. If you add Albert Huggins, Trenton Thompson, Tim Settle, and Shai Tuttle, that would be an awesome defensive line class. Yeah, that would be the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you got all those guys, boy, that would be tremendous. Venables and Coach Brooks and those defensive coaches, they'd go nuts. But chances of getting all of those guys are slim. Huggins is a good possibility. Thompson is someone they're talking to and is interested. Same thing with Settle. They're in the top 3 with Settle. Tuttle's a guy I haven't heard much from. I know he's a highly regarded prospect in North Carolina, and he's related to Perry Tuttle, but don't hear much from him. All right, what else do we have here? This is from Tony, and he says he's writing about Kelly from our story when Chad was interviewed on a Buffalo TV station. A college should be held to the same high standard as the kids they mentor. When you commit to the school, it should be committed to you. They should not be able to pull a Scully because they butt heads. When you release a player, he should have the choice to go wherever he chooses. You can in the real world. What gives the NCAA the authority to dictate the future of these children after they are told they are unwanted? That's an excellent point. I wish that is something they would investigate and do away with. I think that players should be free to transfer without penalty. The concern, of course, the idea about making them sit out is that they're concerned that schools will recruit players who are on the bench, aren't playing very much, and they will tell them, hey, you can transfer and play next year at our place, and you'll have that kind of stuff going on. Well, I don't know. You still have over 400 players in college basketball D1 transferring this year. So that doesn't seem to be stemming the tide of players wanting to transfer. And, when a player sees a coach leave for a better job, more money, and he's able to do that without penalty, breaking a contract, and starting up at his new place right away, yet the kid, even when the kid's forced to leave, like take Jalen Shaw, take the two kids leaving USC basketball or the one leaving Clemson. I mean, of course, they're saying they're leaving because they're looking for greater playing time. Well, in both cases, both schools had to open up some spots to get to the 13 scholarship limit, so somebody had to go.
I think they should make it easier. I mean, even if they had to go, if a school wanted to appeal it and say, no, this guy, we think there was a tampering situation that happened here, a school could try to block it and force them to sit out a year at that particular school. But other than that, unless there's a reason stipulated, if you're kicked off a team or, but if you leave in good academic standing and there's no appeal from the coaching staff, you should be able to go and finish your career, not be hijacked, because like you said, no one bats an eye when coaches leave, assistant coaches leave before bowl games. It's just, no one says, they're quitting on their team, but players don't do any of that.
Two things
they're
that get
called
me.
selfish.
Two things that really get me and burn my backside about this whole deal.
Grind your gears.
That too. One is when a player wants to transfer because of a coaching change. Take the kid House from Houston. He goes through a coaching change, so he wants to leave. He doesn't like the new staff, Kelvin Sampson and company. Yet they prevent him from transferring to certain schools. No schools in Texas, no schools in Conference USA on their schedule. They put limitations on it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That's stupid. And the other thing, of course, and you kind of touched on it, what gets me is when, especially in football, coaches are recruiting and also looking at other jobs at the same time. They know they've got a new job set up for them, but they wait until after signing day, and they sign these guys. Then 2 days later, hey, I'm off to wherever. Now, it might be an improvement for them. It might be a coordinator job.
You don't fault them.
Well,
but like Ellis Johnson, when he was at South Carolina, before they went to the first Capital One Bowl, he gets hired as a head coach at Southern Miss, and he leaves for that Southern Miss job. Now, let's say Alshon Jeffrey, an agent, would have come up to him and said, you know what? This is a meaningless bowl game. It doesn't mean anything. You've done all you need to do at South Carolina. Here's $1 million. Let's go get ready for the NFL draft. And Alshon said, you know what? My mom could use that money. I've got some stuff. And took that. Everybody would say Alshon Jeffrey is selfish. His draft stock would plummet. But, Ellis Johnson leaves the team right before the bowl game, which is supposed to be the biggest game of the year, right? And, again, I'm not saying anything bad about Ellis Johnson, but I do think that's a double standard.
Yeah, well, the argument would be one is a job move, and the other one is still supposedly a student athlete getting his education, supposed to be in school. All right, we'll be right back.
I decided to enter the draft because I felt like I was ready to go, and you know,
I want to share this with you from Baseball America. Aaron Fitt writing about the national seeds for the upcoming tournament. And he says there are two teams secure as national seeds, Virginia and Florida. Right now on the bubble, but in Oregon State, Florida State, Indiana, Louisiana Lafayette, Texas Christian, and Vanderbilt. On the bubble outside, Mississippi, Miami Rice, USC, Cal Poly, Oklahoma State. Now, he writes that Vanderbilt probably jumped Ole Miss in the pecking order by winning that road series at Florida. And he said if South Carolina wins this series at Vanderbilt, the Gamecocks could still jump Vanderbilt and Ole Miss and snag a national seed since they're 16-11 in the league, number 12 in the RPI. He says it's possible the SEC could get 3 national seeds. He says that seems less likely due to the number of strong contenders in other conferences. He says believes Florida is locked in as a national seed with a number 3 RPI, 14-7 against top 25 in the RPI, and the fact it's number 1 in the SEC standings. So that's the take from Aaron Fitt. Regional hosts beyond the top 8, he's got Cal Poly, USC, Washington, Oklahoma State, Liberty, and then Virginia, Florida, Oregon State, Florida State, Indiana, TCU, Vanderbilt, and then Rice, Miami, and Ole Miss. And on the bubble, on the outside, Louisville, LSU, Houston, Alabama, and Texas. So that's how he sees it right now. See what else he's got here to share about the tournament. Anything about Clemson? Tournament bids. Atlantic Coast Conference, he's got 7 bids, and he's got Clemson on the bubble, but in right now with Georgia Tech, Clemson, and North Carolina, safely in Virginia, Florida State, Miami, and Maryland. So Tigers just need to take care of their own business. I think right now, win these games against Boston College probably will be enough to get them into the NCAA tournament. Now, I would think. Maybe might need a win in the ACC tournament as well. Have to wait and see. But I would think maybe certainly sweeping Boston College would be in their best interest. No sense playing around and thinking 2 out of 3. They got to go with the mindset of winning all 3, I would think. By doing so, that would get the Tigers to 35 wins, 16-13 in the ACC. So I would think that'd be enough to get them in somewhere, probably as about a number 3 seed somewhere in the country. All right, we are going to be catching up, I do believe, with Chad Holbrook after the bottom of the hour breaks. We will ask him those 2 pertinent questions. Why'd you bus to Vanderbilt? What's the cutoff for flying versus busing? And is the rabbit on the trip as well? Maybe they just brought the rabbit's foot for good luck instead of the whole rabbit. I'll have to ask him that. Be right back. All right, we're back with you, Sports Talk. Phil Kornblutz and K-Mac, Kevin McCrary. Good to have you with us here on this Wednesday night. We head out to Nashville, Tennessee, where South Carolina and Vanderbilt will get it on tomorrow night at 7:30 on ESPNU in a huge SEC series to close out the regular season. We have Gamecock coach Chad Holbrook with us. So, how was the bus ride?
Oh, good, Phil. It wasn't too bad. We got over here in pretty good time and had a meal on the way and watched a couple movies. So we're in good shape now. I'm trying to get a workout in, training here now in Nashville, but we can do some inside work, maybe break a little bit of a sweat in preparation for tomorrow night.
Now, we had a caller ask us, and we said we'd ask you, what's the determining point for busing versus flying on one of these long road trips?
Well, it's about that 6-7 hour cutoff probably, and obviously it's financial situation as well. We tend to we'll fly to LSU, we'll fly to Ole Miss, we'll fly to Arkansas, but everywhere else is in 6 or 7 hours, and we can get there in pretty good time. It saves our athletic department our budget a lot of money. Sure. All right, on to more important things. Did you take the rabbit with you on the trip? Oh, I'm sure he's here somewhere. I hadn't laid eyes on him yet, but I'm sure those guys got him in a good spot.
Very good. Health of the team now. After last night, you talked about Connor Bright took some BP. You held out Max last night, not because you were resting him. He just couldn't play. So how's it looking today for those guys for tomorrow night?
Well, we just got done with this stretching part of our little workout today, so they're just now getting in the cage to get a few swings, see how they feel. They're both here, and they're part of the travel roster, and they're going to try to get loose here today and take some BP, and we'll know a little bit more about how they're feeling after tonight's practice. Max has seen some live pitching recently. Connor hasn't. It would be very difficult for Connor to be in the starting lineup tomorrow night. He hadn't seen live pitching in a month and hadn't had any game activity, but he might can help us in some ways, whether it be base running, defensive replacement, or maybe a pinch hit situation here or there just to get his feet wet. But I don't know right now if it'd be fair to Connor to put him in the starting lineup with how much time he's missed.
Talking with USC baseball coach Chad Holbrook. So after going undefeated last week and winning your game last night, a lot of offense last night, do you sense a little bit of an uptick? Not that the confidence has ever waned, but do you sense a confident team going into this series beginning tomorrow night?
Well, I hope so. I mean, we could be very, very confident and play very, very well and still, not come out of here and beat Vanderbilt because they're awfully talented. They're awfully good here at home. And their pitchers make it very, very difficult for you to score any runs. So, but I do think we have a confident team. I think a team, they feel like they believe in themselves and they feel like they can beat anybody on any given day. But we'll see. We're going to have to play awfully well. Like I said, Vanderbilt's awfully difficult here. They haven't obviously lost the series. Not anybody even scored on them since they put Carson Fulmer in the rotation. So we're gonna have our hands full, but we are looking forward to the challenge.
It seems like every year they trot out 2 or 3 arms that 90 plus, mid-90, somewhere in there, and their strikeout to innings pitch ratio is very good. And it seems like this staff is pretty much more of the same.
Yeah, well, all 3 of their starters will be mid-90s guys. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday guy. Heck, their Tuesday guy is a mid-90s guy too. So they got a lot of power arms, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge to push runs across against them. When they went to Florida a couple of weeks ago, Florida I think scored 3 runs in 3 games, and 2 of those 3 runs were in a 16-2 victory for Vanderbilt. So they make it awfully difficult for you to score. We're going to have to be very, very efficient offensively. We're going to have to get some bunts down. We're going to have to take a walk or 2. And then when we get runners in scoring position, we're going to have to capitalize. We can't, because that's not going to happen too much. We got to maximize our opportunities. They're not going to give you too much, too many opportunities with runners in scoring position to capitalize. Talking with the USC baseball coach Chad Holbrook. So, I mean, if everybody on both sides, pitchers and defense, if everybody plays up to capabilities and lives up to the billing, I mean, we're looking at a series here. You think 2-1, 3-2 kind of games where
just manufacturing a run here or there is going to make the difference between a win and a loss?
Well, I mean, if you look at the team's ERAs, I think you could make that, prediction. Sometimes baseball is not like that. Sometimes when you think it's going to be a pitcher's duel, all of a sudden it becomes a high-scoring affair. That's just the nature of the game. But when you look at how both pitching staffs have thrown all year long, it certainly looks as if runs will be hard to come by. But Vandy's got some guys in there that can swing the bat very well. They got some speed. They got some power. They can beat you a number of different ways. And I think we have a few good hitters on our team too. So maybe these hitters off both of our teams will sit up to the challenge and push some runs across, because it's looking at their ERAs and their statistics of both pitching staffs, it's kind of scary. It makes it. It certainly looks like it could be 2-1, 3-2 type game.
Yeah, I mean, to have, as your team does, a staff ERA under 2 this late in the season, going into your last SEC series, I mean, is that just is that more because of your pitching, or is that more an indication of what's gone on with the bats in recent years, combination of both? I mean, that's almost unheard of in college baseball or any level of baseball.
Well, I think a number of things. One, the bats makes it awfully difficult to score these days. Our pitchers are awfully talented. Coach Myers does a terrific job with them. He calls a great game. We play defense behind our guys. So that's I think you combine all those factors. I think this led to an incredible season thus far from our pitching staff, and I couldn't imagine having after 53 games having an ERA of under 2. That's almost unheard of. And but we've had a number of guys step up and pitch well, both starters and relievers, and they've been terrific for us all year.
I'm looking at some numbers here on Vanderbilt and ask you to comment about why they're so good in this area. Number one, doubles, 116 doubles. You touched on this last night about their ballpark. So how defensively, what do you talk about with your outfielders in trying to keeping balls from getting through them, and singles turning into doubles and that sort of thing, and doubles turning into triples?
Well, we got to get a gauge of how fast the outfield is. When the ball hits the ground, how quickly the ball travels. It's going to be different from what we're used to playing on at home, and I'm sure that's played a part in a number of the doubles that they have. Not only do they have good hitters, but the artificial turf, balls can tend to skip through in the alleys and get past the outfielders and create some more doubles. So I'm sure the park has something to do with it. It's a very spacious park out here. It's a very fast track with the artificial turf, and our outfielders are going to have to take correct angles, correct routes to cut the ball off and hold those runners to singles, because that may play an important part in there. We can't give anybody a free base, and if they hit a single, we got to keep them at a single. We got to always try like crazy from a defensive standpoint to not give them any free 90s. Give them what they deserve and nothing more. And that's what we're going to try to do this weekend.
All right. It's going to be a great college baseball series. I have no doubt about that. Two of the best teams in the country going at it, and a lot riding on it. So good luck to you. We appreciate the visit, and we will be talking to you next week before the SEC tournament.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks for having us, and we'll see you soon when we get back in town.
Okay, man. Appreciate it very much. All right, that's Chad Holbrook, USC baseball coach. So the rabbit is, he thinks they are somewhere, and they don't fly because, Byron. And then again, as we thought, they fly to certain areas, but based on distance and budget and all that, that's how they make that decision about where to fly. You were right, K-Mac, they do fly to LSU.
Yeah, and he didn't mention Texas A&M. I would imagine that'll be a flight, too. Yeah. They haven't had their first series out there yet.
I would think so. All right, thanks to Coach Holbrook. Appreciate him being with us tonight. We will do recruiting coming up here after the break. How about Chip? Have we heard from him? Are we going to dial him up as well? Okay, we'll talk a little NASCAR coming up after the break, too. So don't go away. We have a bunch of good stuff still to come your way here on Sports Talk, and we'll be right back. we head out to Nashville, Tennessee. We head out to Nashville, Tennessee. All right, time to visit with our good buddy Chip Wow, presidents of Darlington Raceway. Tied up last night. We get him on tonight, chat a little NASCAR, and then we'll get into recruiting and maybe take another call or two before we sign off tonight. But Chip, welcome in. Terrific race at Kansas over the weekend, despite the fact that the lights went out. But very popular win for Jeff Gordon. Looked like, I think it was Harvick that closed on him very quickly there at the end. Just didn't have enough time to catch him.
Yeah, one more corner it looked like, and Kevin would have gotten another win. But that's the great thing about this new point system. People take risks, and sometimes they pay off. Jeff Gordon's been fast every week. He's finished second, third, and fourth. So it's great to finally get him a win and know that he's a lock for the chase. And now they can really they can all take a deep breath and start gearing up for September when it starts.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the other big piece of news coming out of the race, as far as where they finished, was Danica Patrick and her showing, best showing of her career. And people have wondered, when was she going to have a good showing on a non-restricted plate track. She had it at Kansas. She was strong the entire race and finished seventh and was right up in there until the very end.
Yeah, I mean, she ran a great race. She finally put an entire race together from start to finish. She was fast right off the truck in practice, qualified well, and then raced really well. And what she did that she struggled in the past is she didn't put herself in a spot early in the race that was going to potentially take her out. She knew where she needed to be, and I feel like her and her crew chief, Tony Gibson, are really finally starting to sync up. When she says something is happening with the car, he knows the right adjustments to make, and that's all a matter of time. It's a matter of the guys working together and making the right adjustments, because everybody, they use the same terminology, loose and tight, depending on what the car's doing, but everybody has a different interpretation of what that means. So really great for everybody when Danica runs well, and she put a great race together Saturday. It looked like she potentially had one of the fastest cars there and was going to race for the win, but seventh is a great showing, and look forward to seeing what she can do this week in Charlotte.
I want to ask you, I mean, is the feeling around the NASCAR people that this was just kind of the beginning of a good run for her if she stays out of trouble? I mean, they feel like you talk about the communication, but the equipment and her knowledge and her experience now kind of catching up to where you can look for good showings from her on a weekly basis?
I mean, I think they're certainly making a lot of improvements. You got to remember, she's only been in a stock car for 4 years. Most of these guys have been in a stock car for their almost their entire life, and she's been racing open wheels. So the learning curve is quite sharp, and I feel like she's doing a really good job. There's a lot of pressure and a lot of eyes on Danica Patrick every week, and certainly a lot of critics. And it takes time. This isn't something people learn overnight, and she's doing a great job. I feel like she's handling herself well. She's great for our sport. She brings a lot of notoriety, a lot of different kind of perspective than some of these other race car drivers, being not only a female, but a very popular figure within any sport. So she's great for our sport, and it's great that she's running well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Now we've got Charlotte here the next couple of weekends, all-star race coming up this weekend, and any major changes to the format? They seem like they change that format almost every year. What about this year?
No, the format's the same, so it's 4 20-lap segments and then a 10-lap shootout for $1 million. The great thing about Charlotte this weekend is it's either checkers or wreckers. They got nothing to lose, no points on the line. Nobody's paying anything per second. It's $1 million or bust. So it's going to be a great event. It always is, and it's nice for these guys that travel every weekend. They have 2 weeks of really a home race, so they get to spend 2 weeks at home with their families and sleep in their own bed and even in their own house, which is a change for these guys. And I can tell you, being on that side for a long time, everybody looks forward to the Charlotte break because you do finally get a little bit of normalcy in your life.
Yeah.
But Saturday's going to be a great event. I mean, there's some obviously great winners. There's going to be a fan vote, and there are a lot of great drivers that still haven't gotten a win that potentially can get voted in by fans. So a lot of great elements, a lot of energy around Charlotte. I'm actually heading up there tomorrow for some of the festivities, so look forward to getting up there.
Sounds great. Listen, enjoy yourself. We'll catch you next Tuesday night in your regular slot. We'll talk about the All-Star event and look ahead to the 600 as well.
Great. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chip Wow, president of Darlington, with us here on the Wednesday night, normally with us on Tuesday. We appreciate him visiting with us. Jeff Gordon leading the points race, 394 points. Matt Kenseth currently second. Then it is Kyle Busch, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Carl Edwards rounding out your top five. Of course, winning a race pretty much gets you into the chase, and you don't have to worry about your points standing as you would in the past. As long as you can win a race, win 2 races, you got absolutely nothing to worry about. All right, we're coming up. Okay, we have some breaking news to dive into our recruiting report with. Zach Gaiella, offensive lineman out of Augusta, just tweeted out a couple of minutes ago that he has committed to Clemson. Big pickup for the Tigers, big offensive lineman, 6'6", 285. Had been favoring LSU, but told us that Clemson was making a big move for him. Obviously they were, because they have gotten his commitment. USC was in the mix there for a while, but kind of faded. And so Zach Gaiella becomes the 13th commitment for Clemson. He also had offers from Ole Miss, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Duke, Missouri, Virginia, Miami, Georgia Tech, Michigan, Vanderbilt, some of his offers. So obviously a pretty highly thought of offensive lineman, Zach Gaiella from Augusta, just a couple of minutes ago announcing that he has committed to Clemson. Now to other recruiting information. Defensive lineman Sterling Johnson from Clayton, North Carolina, just after we went off the air last night, he announced a commitment to Clemson after he had attempted to commit to Tennessee earlier in the day, as we had told you about last night on the program. Alabama and Ohio State were the other top schools with him. And talking with him last night, he said in making the decision to go to Clemson after things didn't work out with Tennessee, he said, quote, "I felt like it was God's plan. I really enjoyed our conversation with Dabo Swinney. I like the coaching staff because they are real people and work like everyone else." And he said he likes the way Clemson plays defense, real aggressive and fast. He had 80 tackles, 55 for loss, and 8 sacks last season. Wide receiver Jalen Christian, Damascus, Maryland. Looks like it's just a matter of when he'll make a commitment to USC. He told us last night, quote, "Getting close, real close. South Carolina is my leader. Everything after them is kind of canceled out. I'm still talking to my mom about everything. I guess we'll see, but I'm coming close, though." He said he has no absolute date in mind for making a commitment, saying it could be this month or next, definitely no later than July. And USC recruiter G.A. Mangus was by to visit him at the school on Monday. Also, Gamecock receiver coach Steve Spurrier Jr. was there on April 30th, and he's talked with both men and has a good relationship with them. Virginia, Temple, Wisconsin, Towson have also been through. He's got 22 offers, including Clemson, Virginia Tech, Duke, Kentucky, Maryland, Nebraska, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Michigan, and North Carolina. He said Maryland is the only other school he's considering besides USC at this point, but he likes the way USC developed Bruce Ellington and has developed Demir Bird. He says he's similar to those in size and in playing style, so he sees himself filling that kind of role. Last year, he had about 800 yards rushing, 500 yards receiving, despite missing 3 games with an injury. Darian Roseborough has listed his top 10 in no order. NC State, Michigan, Clemson, Tennessee, Ohio State, Florida, LSU, North Carolina, Alabama, and Duke. And, of course, it's subject to change, K-Mac.
All right.
And no doubt it will. That'll do it. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.